Okay, I took a pause to take a look at where I was with the painting and to assess what was happening because I felt like things were getting a little bit off. And I noticed that I was working from this, which is actually a print of what's on the screen, and the values are a bit different, so it's affecting the way that I was putting values in the painting. And also, trying to work from a master work of art, and I noticed this was done digitally in the original, so it's really going to create some different type of strokes and stuff. So you have to kind of, when you're normally doing this, you're doing it from something from nature or something you're actually observing, and so you're making your own brush strokes and stuff. So when you're trying to actually respond to somebody else's, you got to imagine you're not going to create the exact same shapes. So you got to work with that. Okay, so I notice also I've got this a little bit too dark in there, so I'm going to lighten this up just a little bit across here, and do that by kind of just taking a wash across it. Oops, still too dark. And just lighten it up a little bit. And the one thing you can do is literally take a lighter tone over the darker tone and dry brush over it, and that gives it an atmospheric effect, which means you kind of feel like you're seeing the one tone coming through the other, and that's kind of what you see happening in there. So I'm kind of trying to create that effect, but I'm noticing it blending in quite a lot. All right, so it's lightened it a bit, maybe a little bit more. So I'm noticing as soon as I put it down, it blends into it. Okay, so I want to come back and I want to redefine some of the shapes up in here. Let me see, try this. I'm using a slightly smaller brush right now. I want to pull the shapes in a little bit tighter. And mostly because I saw in this, there was a lot of brushwork that isn't showing up in the print that's actually in the original. Okay, so I'm pulling this down. It may end up being a little bit dark, but what I also noticed was that there were darker strokes and then there's lighter strokes coming back over it. So there's a lot of stuff happening in there, and so I'm going to try and make some of that happen here. I want to just make sure this is correct. That's reasonable. I'm going to have to come back and change it a little bit. Okay, so there's some of the stuff is slightly off. Again, that's probably why it wasn't working quite right. And this all needs to come down slightly, and then I'll come back in with some lighter tones. Okay. Too light. Right. But I do need to bring this shape back in here, so I want to do that. There's this one. And this. Ooh, too light. Okay, I need to bring some of this back in. And you want to layer your tonal areas because it's going to be, you want to bring your lighters on top of, lighter tones on top of your darker tones. And that'll create, again, not only layering, but also you can do some texture effect, feel like some of the atmosphere is coming through. And of course, okay, so there's some lighter tones. All right. This is actually a little bit off back here too. So again, by dry brushing that across there, you create that kind of atmospheric effect. And through layering. Okay, so getting some of that stuff to look a little bit better. It's interesting. The tone I'm putting down here looks right on the palette, but it doesn't 100% register right now. That could be because, like I said, the stuff is tricky because it darkens when it dries. So the tone you think you're working with changes a little bit when it actually finishes up. So you need to pull some of this area down, and then some other area behind there. This one, there's a spot right across there that I kind of missed before. Slightly darker. Okay, and this right here. Okay. We got a little bit of time, so I'm actually going to work on this area up here real quick. This whole area up here is much darker than the rest of the painting. Like even this is darker than anything else that's in the painting. So I'm going to have to start working darker initially. And try not to get too dark because there has to be enough contrast. I think that may be just slightly too dark. And I was trying to decide whether to go with the darkest part first or lightest, and it was kind of a 50-50. I don't know which would be the better on this particular. And it's almost, I think it would be almost better to go with the darkest first, but the darkest is going to be almost black. So on the guy, I'm going to go darkest part first, and again, just imagining how I would have painted it initially. It was probably just big blocks. And again, it's not going to be exact, and it's not important that it is. It's more of a value study, and it's not about getting all these little things exactly perfect, just to get the feel for the overall painting. Let's see. Again, that is going to have to be just black when I do that. So let me put a little bit more, some of this color in here. And holding the paintbrush sideways, you can get some pretty sharp lines. Just dragging that across to get kind of a dry brush. And there were some deeper tones like up in here, but they're going to be painted back over. Okay, so let me just go with the big brush in black. Can't get quite the same effect because it's clearly a tool they're using to create the textures. Again, I don't want to spend all day working on this. I just want to get it done pretty quickly and see how it all plays out. come back in with some of the lighters. I've really only got a couple minutes to try and finish this up because I've got to deal with class here in a second. So I'm just going to, amazing blending tool of the finger. You know, I'm looking at this, I should have hit some lighter tones right here. And some of these, like I said, some of this stuff in here was getting back into that. A little lighter tone here. Yeah. I could probably take a little bit longer and actually pull out some of the clearly defined planes that are in the image, but I'm afraid I'm going to run out of time, which I probably have. What time is it? Got 4 minutes, and this has to be done. Ooh, too dark, but a little too dark there. Through a little bit. Lighten that. Some light behind there. Didn't work. Okay, just lost my screen. This stuff up here all should have been darker. A little bit darker. I gotta bring it. That will darken a little bit as it dries. Ooh, too bright again. You put a little bit of light back in there to make that shape pop out a little bit. And a little bit dark up here to make this. So there's still a few little details that, again, if I had a little bit longer to work on this, but unfortunately today I don't. I'm going to have to just call it a day here in a second. Ray needs a little more back and forth in some of these areas, but that's the thing about a quick sketch. You don't always have the time. You got to do it quick and get the best you can in a short period of time. So, oops, there's one spot I definitely want to go. This spot here needs to go down just a little bit, and this whole area here was supposed to be a little bit darker. Bring it forward a little bit from that background, but not close to the very foreground. Okay, so it did need a little bit more darkness. Okay, bugger. That's all I got for now. Okay, again, not spotless, but it's a pretty good representation of what was going on there. And that's all I've got for today.